My wardrobe and luxury collection used to be a lot bigger. At one point, I had close to 20 designer handbags. It was way more than I could practically use for my lifestyle, but yet it never felt like enough. We even thought about moving to a bigger house just so I could have a walk-in closet. Fortunately, I came across minimalism a few years ago, and it has helped to change my mindset a lot. I've been decluttering consistently ever since, and I've downsized my collection quite substantially. I now feel a lot happier and so much lighter because my collection is now a better reflection of who I truly am. If you are also thinking about downsizing but not too sure about where to start, I hope this video will be helpful for you. Selling your pieces, especially luxury items, can be very daunting. So I definitely recommend starting small. For example, you can kickstart your journey of downsizing with something less expensive first, such as a keyring, a card holder, or sunglasses. This way you can warm up to the idea of selling your luxury items. I actually think it's really important to familiarize yourself with the nitty-gritty of selling, such as taking pictures, looking for the right buyer, what kind of consignment service to go for, the insurance cost, and how much to charge for the item. I made the mistake of not starting small when I first decided to downsize. The first designer item I sold was my Chanel boy flap in the new medium size. The idea of selling this really expensive handbag was so intimidating for me. Eventually, I did sell the bag, but it took me a long time to do it. The thing is, I knew I wasn't enjoying the bag and I wanted to let it go, but I held myself back because it was so much money and risk. Throughout that time, I was completely put off by the idea of selling anything, so I didn't downsize for the longest time. So the lesson I've learned here is starting small is always better than not starting at all. For me, it's always easier to let go of the pieces we don't use or wear much because technically your life shouldn't be affected that much even if the item is gone from your collection. So that brings me to my second tip, which is to track all the pieces in your wardrobe and see how often you reach for them. Some people like to use a fancy spreadsheet for this. I personally just make notes on my journal whenever I notice something hasn't been getting a lot of attention from me. I think having a YouTube channel really helps me out because I'm always sharing my most and least used items here. To be honest, I think the way you track your wardrobe doesn't really matter as long as you are very mindful about what brings you joy and if your items are still working well for you. I think tracking is essential if you're trying to downsize a very large and comprehensive collection because it will really help to narrow down the selection of items which might be the perfect candidates for downsizing. And even if your collection is fairly small and you have some holy grail pieces, our lifestyles can always change. Same goes with our living situation, environment, or even body shapes. So tracking your wardrobe is a very practical way to see if your items are still serving you well. I personally get a lot of motivation to downsize if I see a long list of things which are just sitting in my closet collecting dust. Sometimes I really want to curate my collection, but I procrastinate because life is busy and there's always something else that takes priority. For me, it really helps when I schedule in some time for downsizing. For those of you who have tried to sell a designer handbag or luxury item, you know how intense and time-consuming the job really is. So I like to break it down into smaller tasks just so it's a lot more manageable. For example, whenever I've decided to sell something, I will take some time to put together all the miscellaneous pieces for the item, such as the receipt, proof of purchase, dust bag, polishing kit, and any kind of packaging. then that's the time I need to set aside for doing research about the general market value for the item I want to sell. I recommend spending a bit of time on this because the going rate for any designer item can really vary depending on things like color, leather material, hardware, and fashion trends. Once I have an idea about the pricing, I'll then look at several consignment surveys and decide if I should sell the item myself. Of course, there's also time I need to allocate for taking pictures, doing blog sale, and answering emails and messages. As you can see, all this takes a lot of time. It's really not as straightforward as buying a Chanel handbag from the store. So make sure to set time for it if you're really considering about downsizing, because if it's not on your diary, it probably won't ever happen. Something else that has really helped with my downsizing journey is simply letting go of my fantasy self. I find that when I acknowledge and honor my own lifestyle, it makes letting go so much easier. In the context of designer shopping, I think most of us have probably purchased things for our fantasy selves, and these are the things we wish to use or wear one day. That one day might mean when we live our dream life, or when we have that dream body figure, or when we get to live in a certain house or a certain city. In fact, I would say my collections of fine jewelry, luxury handbags, and designer shoes were more or less built for my fantasy self. The truth is, I wanted so much to look like one of those beautiful people I saw on YouTube and Instagram. It actually took me years to make peace with the fact that I don't live their lives and it's okay to be honest with myself. The reality is, I have a very simple but busy life. There are really not many fancy social events or parties I have to attend. Most of my time is split between working a very demanding day job, being a mother, and exploring different hobbies. This is my life and I'm embracing every moment of it. I just want to clarify that my idea of decluttering and downsizing is never about getting rid of absolutely everything, but rather a very conscious effort to curate my collection just so it will serve my actual self and not my imaginary fantasy self. When it comes to downsizing, I've certainly been a victim of Suncoast Fallacy. This is a concept which states that humans tend to struggle to let go of something if they've invested a lot of time and money in it. For example, let's say you bought a Louis Vuitton handbag at about $3,000 a few years ago. You can imagine it must be so hard to swallow if you now had to let go of the bag at $300. This is especially the case if the bag was very hard to get at one point, but now the demand is gone because the trend has completely passed. This actually happened to me when I sold my Celine Nano luggage tote. Even though the bag was practically brand new, I had to sell it at less than half the price I paid for. As heartbreaking as it is, there will be times when we just have to take the hit. This is especially true if the item doesn't spark joy anymore and is doing nothing apart from taking up space in our closet. Some people might say trends can always make a comeback, and one example is the Dior saddlebags. However, no one can really predict the next upcoming trends. Of course, nobody wants to undercharge for their designer pieces, but sometimes the market just doesn't work in our favor. And so if an item doesn't make us happy anymore, it's really time to consider cutting our losses. I've personally experienced many benefits from downsizing, but I think it's important to remember that we don't have to be too hard on ourselves. If you're not ready to let go of something, that's okay. I'm really not here to push anyone into decluttering. Now, it is true that I've sold many of my luxury handbags and designer pieces, but I have to say, with every single item that I let go of, I was ready to say goodbye and I was sure of it. However, this is not to say I've never had any hesitation when it comes to curating my wardrobe. Even though my collection is relatively small, there are still pieces that I don't use as much, but I hang on to them for one reason or another. For example, I might anticipate a lifestyle change. Other times, I'm also quite conscious about the price increases of all luxury brands. This is why, even though I don't use my Chanel classic flap much, I'm not ready to let it go yet. With the current Chanel's pricing, I really don't see myself getting another classic flap from the Chanel store if I ever regret my decision. I think it's really important to give yourself the permission to wait until you're ready, especially if you're not desperate for the space or the cash. The way I see it, there's a massive difference between wanting to do something versus feeling like you have to do it. At the end of the day, decluttering is not a race, so you can certainly do it at your own pace. I mean, if you really struggle to let go of something, maybe you really do love it and it might deserve a second chance from you. For me, the essence of downsizing and decluttering is to remove chaos and distractions just so we have the mental and physical space to enjoy the things we love. I think having a very curated wardrobe will also help you understand your own preferences, and that will definitely help you to make better shopping decisions with future purchases. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you're new here, my name is Eileen and I would love for you to subscribe and join our lovely community. So that's it from me. Until next week, take care and have a good day.